Okay, this is Film Class, Week 7, Part 5. Cecilia tries to kill herself by water and ultimately kills herself by jumping off of the roof. Um, it... Actually, I guess I don't really know. She doesn't drown herself in the bathtub, so she just dies in the bathtub. Or she tries to die in the bathtub. But the image of the suicide girl in water made me think of a feeling of drowning, but I don't suppose she was really trying to drown exactly in a bathtub. Anyway, it's not really relevant. She does ultimately die by falling on a fence. The fence in the film feels like an important kind of metaphor also. Because the fence is, of course, what you use when you want to separate two areas, right? You put a fence and you say, on this side of the fence is your property, and on this side of the fence is my property. It's a kind of dividing line. To die on a fence suggests you're between two things. And what are the two things that little Cecilia was stuck between? She's stuck between being a girl and being a woman. Like all the Lisbon girls, are kind of they're all in the fancy graduate school word for this is liminal. I don't know. But they're all on the line. They're not little girls, but they're not adult women. They're just on the fence between the two. In fact, you can see the little girlness in the diary entries feel like something a little girl would write. The handwriting is very little girl. The title, Virgin Suicides, is written like a notebook like a little girl would do, with little hearts for eyes and stuff. They're right on the edge between being a girl and being a woman, in a kind of in an in-between state on the fence. And it's really important, and that's why she sort of dies on the fence. Okay, cool. Interestingly, by the way, I like that you can see that this movie is about grief, but again, it's not overly dramatic. It's not, it's not about torture or, the grief of the parents is muted. You may have found it dull. I found it realistic. For example, the father wants the fence gone. And he has a dream in which he sees a girl and she's like, it's okay, you don't have to worry, the fence is gone. And it's a funny thing because it suggests that in the father's mind, it was the fence that was the problem. Dude, it wasn't the fence, like she was gonna land on the ground anyway, and probably she might have died or gotten really hurt anyway, but she also had tried suicide another way, so the fence is not the issue. The issue is your daughter completed suicide, but he doesn't really want to confront that. What they do is they rip out the fence as if that's gonna fix or help the problem in some way, and it's really not. That's really, the fence is beside the point. It just happened to be there. And I suppose maybe she wanted to die on the fence, but it's, there's other ways to kill yourself, so it's really not sort of the key issue. Another little detail that's just a simple, realistic thing is just the tiny moment in which the cemetery workers are on strike. It's just and he gets out and tells them that, his 13-year-old daughter committed suicide. Please let him pass. Don't be on strike for me right now. It's not as super important to the world of the film. It's just, there are little details that just make it feel real. It just makes it feel like a real place. That sometimes when you go to a funeral, what if the people who dig the graves are on strike that week? It's just the kind of thing that happens in real life. It's the kind of thing that makes a real life funeral different from a movie funeral. And because this movie funeral feels like a real life funeral, it makes the whole film seem more realistic, which is an important thing to add into a movie that's often so dreamy and so strange, and that also, like life, isn't going to give you easy answers. Movies often give you easy answers, and I go, here's the secret. This movie goes, you don't get to know what the secret is. All right, cool. Good, and obviously you see the dad watching baseball and kind of not paying attention to things. Okay, cool. This is going really well. I also wanted to add that one of the kids does a bit of psychoanalysis, right? They read her diary and they try to analyze. And again, it's the kind of thing you want an answer. And so they go, let's read the diary and we'll get the answer as to the mystery of why this girl killed herself. But interestingly, the kid goes, she's a dreamer. She has no she's so unconnected to reality. She probably thought she would fly when she jumped out that window. That is not right at all, I don't think. There's no evidence that Cecilia was kind of so mentally detached from a reality that she didn't know she would die if she jumped out the window onto a fence. But I think it's worth pointing out that while that's a really stupid analysis, it's not really any better than the professional psychologist's analysis, Danny DeVito, who's just like, she should be allowed out of the house more, let her see some boys have a party. Like, that's not, you think that's the problem? Cecilia hasn't had enough parties and so she killed herself? Like, no one knows what to do with these girls. They remain ungraspable. And that's one of the most interesting parts of this movie, is that they are simply, the people that try to understand them, none of them can. You'll see this again when we get to Lost Highway. It's why this is a great part of this unit. Cool, okay. Alright, this is going good. Let's see. The diary, she talks about Monet in the diaries, who's a painter, but she's also got unicorns. That's another great image of what I was talking about before, about how these girls are right on the edge between childhood and adulthood. Children talk about unicorns. Adults talk about famous impressionist paintings by Monet, who's a very famous artist in museums. She's got both in the diary, because she's right on the edge between being a child and being a woman, being an adult. Okay, cool. And again, with the diary, the boys, like with the telescope in the diary, the boys are being voyeurs. They're trying to find out what people are really like without exposing themselves at all. Okay, cool. This is going pretty good. I like it. Monet, unicorns. Oh, and the poem. The little girl has like a 2-line poem, and she connects herself to the trees. So it's she is smart enough to make a connection between her own suicide, or suicidal thoughts, and the fungus on the trees that's killing the trees. So that's not just my analysis, it's Cecilia's analysis of her own situation. She actually rhymes a little bit when she connects herself to the trees in the diary. It's a lovely little detail. Cool. The boys say that they felt the imprisonment of being a girl. They felt, that's a really interesting line. They by reading the diary, they felt the imprisonment of being a girl, who were active but trapped, because they're not allowed to go out. They're controlled more than boys are, and that they think about dreams and colors and these kinds of girly things. And they say girls were women in disguise. They understood love and death, and that we, boys, were sort of the object to fascinate them. They knew everything about us. The boys say that they knew everything about the girls, but couldn't fathom them at all. So all the information they have about the girls doesn't help the boys understand the girls. They love gathering information and getting their things and reading the same catalogs, and they're trying to understand these girls. They believe, by the way, that the girls understand the boys, but the boys don't understand the girls. That's a kind of fantasy, I think. You go, well, they understand me, but I don't understand them. But there's something really interesting happening with the nerdy kids. They are trying very, very hard to connect to the girls, in a way that the jocks do not. The jocks kind of, they like the girls, and Trip has sex with Kirsten Dunst, Lux, but they don't really get into the interior life of the girls at all. The nerdy boys are actually trying to understand what it's like to be a girl. That's an interesting thing to do. Very often, if you ask people, like, who's the character in the movie that reminds you of you? Any movie, not this movie. If you just, you're watching a movie and you go, oh, I really related to this character, I really related to that character. I find that when I was younger, I would always pick a boy on screen. But now as an older person, when I watch a movie, it's usually the women that I feel, that's like me. I feel like that female character on screen. I connect more with the women for various reasons. It's an important part, I think, of being able to think bigger, which is to be able to see yourself in people who are not the same gender as you. And also not the same race and not the same background or whatever, but being able to see similarities across lines of gender or class or race or this kind of stuff. And that's what the boys are trying to do. And it's worth pointing out, by the way, that in a lot of American culture, movies that are designed for boys, young men will drag their girlfriends to these movies, and like Fast and the Furious, and girls will go see them. That's less true. Movies that are of the other direction, it's less true. When movies that are designed for women, studies have shown it's very hard. If a movie has mostly women, is about women issues, men are like, that's a chick flick, and they won't go. But if a movie's designed for men, they'll bring their girlfriends, and the girlfriends will go. There's something interesting that straight men claim to be very interested in women. Oh, I love women, love babes. But they don't actually want to watch the movies the women watch, which is strange, because if you claim to be so interested in these creatures, but you have no interest in what they're interested in, it's bizarre. If you're dating someone, watch the movies they're into, because it tells you a lot about them. And if you shut yourself off from that, you're shutting yourself off from understanding people. Anyway, I just think it's an interesting topic, that if a movie has all women in it, men just will refuse to see it, which is crazy. But it's not, because it's not true the other direction. All right, I'll pick this up in the next one.